Today on The Report.
A major airline is seeking criminal charges after a violent passenger attacks a flight attendant.
Plus, New York City first responders are up in arms after a COVID-19 vaccine mandate takes effect.
And we sit down with one of our own fellow Titans who just had a huge accomplishment on campus. These stories and more up next.
Chaos in disguise as an Irvine man has been charged with assault after allegedly punching a female flight attendant in the face and breaking her nose mid-air. 20-year-old Brian Sue faces charges of interference with a flight crew and assault within a special aircraft jurisdiction of the United States. According to the Department of Justice, the assault was initially reported to have started because of face mask dispute, but American Airlines said, quote, they had no information suggesting the incident was mask complaint related, end quote. The flight originating from New York was en route to John Wayne Airport in Orange County, but had to be diverted for an emergency landing in Denver. Passengers said Sue had to be duct taped to his seat after the alleged attack, and according to the airline, Sue was then removed from the aircraft and apprehended once the flight made it to its destination. Sue appeared for court briefly in Santa Ana, where a judge said his bail to $10,000, which Sue was expected to post and be released from custody. He is expected in a Denver federal court in November 15. American Airlines is supporting the flight attendant and has banned Sue for life from ever flying on their airline, saying, quote, we are outraged by the reports that took place on board, and acts against our team members will not be tolerated by American Airlines, end quote. Once again, we have these kind of situations in which we have the people who bought their tickets, who they know about what's the policy right now during COVID-19, and they are not using their face masks. Now, even though some people might say that it wasn't his problem about the face mask, I still believe, and I am on the side of the American Airlines. If we have these kinds of people in the plane, well, we need some security. And at least I completely agree with the CEO of the company. He even posted a video on Instagram saying that he fully supports the attendant and he's against any kinds of actions, just like people like him did. So what are your opinions on this? I mean, we have, once again, these types of situations.
So essentially, I was doing some reading, and it turns out that the situation may actually be a lot more complicated than that. So according to ABC 7 News, the flight attendant claims that Sue went to go to the restroom, but she instructed him not to because the seatbelt sign was on and someone was already in there. Then it seemed as if Sue was going to stretch when he hit her on the top of her head with his elbow. And then when the attendant went into a defensive posture, apparently it seemed as if he was backing down when he used his right fist to hit her. However, on the other hand, Sue says that the story is just a little bit different. So he says when he was on the flight from New York to California, he was recovering from a brain surgery which could make him feel a little foggy, and which makes him very sensitive to sound and noise. And so he says that he was stretching, he accidentally hit the attendant, and then she was swinging at him. And then he was terrified that she would hit him, so he put his hands up, but then she went after him and hit her nose on the palm of his hand. So I think this is kind of a strange situation, but I think we should still look at both sides to see what's going on. And so if Sue is right and his version of stories is correct, I'm not sure if banning him for a year would be the right thing to do. However, there's not a lot else on the subject of what really happened that I could see. So what are your thoughts, Crystal?
I did see that report from ABC 7, Amanda, as well. And it's interesting because it does change the dynamics a little bit if it is true. We were not on the airplane. It's hard to say. We don't really know what really happened. One of the reports that came in from one of the passengers on the plane who talked to news outlets said she heard some kind of scuffle about a face mask. And it wasn't just once that the flight attendant was hit. It was multiple times. So is hitting somebody multiple times an accident? You have to ask yourself that question. It's hard to say, but I think you make a really great point, Amanda, that if it was unintentional and he did have brain surgery and he was concerned about being hit to protect his head, I mean, I feel like that should be reevaluated. and maybe the charge is not as severe, but it's, I'm a little suspicious now. The stories have changed, but somebody who doesn't really have a dog in the fight is one of the passengers who said they heard something about a face mask, and then the flight attendant was hit multiple times. So I'm not so sure. I feel like there's something fishy going on, but it's hard to say. We can't really speculate too much because we don't have a lot of the facts,
Yeah, that's true. But also what I was looking at, it was the Department of Justice and their summary of the case. And they were saying, and this is kind of like a summary of what happened, but they also said that the passenger, then he returned to his seat as if nothing happened. So hearing these kinds of, these claims, I'm like, okay, so maybe he hit it and then he was just like, okay, I'm just gonna go back like nothing happened. That makes it a little bit more suspicious, and I'm very skeptical of believing in his claim rather than the attendant.
Because you would show some kind of concern, because another report came out. They said they could see blood coming through the face mask of the flight attendant. If I accidentally hit someone and they're bleeding, my God, I'm not going to go back to my seat. I'm going to say, I'm going to help them as much as I can and apologize. And what can I do? Oh my God, I feel terrible.
You'll be worried.
Right? Yeah. You'd be worried. You would show some kind of concern. But then again, we're talking about he's claiming he had brain surgery. And if that's the case, why is he flying? Why is he flying right now? I don't know if I am not a doctor, I don't know, but it seems like that might not be the best situation for him to be in, around a lot of people in a enclosed space where you can get hit. And we all have been on an airplane. We've been hit. I've been hit by luggage many times. So it's something's not adding up here. Definitely not adding.
There should be a punishment, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Maybe not that severe.
Yes.
Because they're talking about like for life. Maybe that is a little bit severe for a person like to never go into this agency of airlines, but for sure, there should be punishment.
Well, there definitely has to be some kind of reprimanding here. We cannot allow people to do attack the flight attendants in the skies. We cannot, being thousands of feet up in the air, all you have are those flight attendants, and you, first of all, you shouldn't be attacking anybody, but, as a flight attendant, you should feel safe and protected doing your job. So I think there definitely has to be some kind of penalty here.
And now, parents across the nation can breathe a sigh of relief as the COVID-19 vaccine for children ages 5 to 11 is approved. The CDC authorized the use of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccination for children ages 5 to 11 Tuesday, with children in states like Texas and Connecticut already receiving doses as of yesterday. Parents can begin setting up appointments online at pharmacies like CVS, Rite Aid, and Walgreens. Some may be even able to get the vaccine appointments as early as this weekend. The CDC authorizations comes just days after the FDA approved the emergency use of the vaccine for children in this new age group. This dose is much lower than the dose for adults, but it is about 90% effective in preventing symptomatic infections. Pfizer says the shots have been well tolerated by young children who show similar vaccine side effects to those ages 16 to 25, according to recent clinical studies. So honestly, I think this is going to help benefit everyone, because think about it, like kids can spread the COVID to adults, right? And as we know, adults will usually have symptoms that seem to show up much worse than it will for kids, for the most part. And so honestly, I don't really see any downsides to this. And for vaccine skeptics, they're still going to be getting a lower dose. I believe it was only 10 milligrams, the 30 milligram dose given to adults. So personally, especially as children are going back into schools and interacting with other kids and other teachers, I think this is a really safe idea. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I completely agree. First of all, because I understand that this is a public health issue that we have been dealing with for the past 2 years. So getting these vaccinations to children is going to be very beneficial for them. That's just the truth. Even though I'm not a parent, but in the case that I would, maybe I would just wait for any other, I don't know, maybe there's always different ways that these children can react to any medication. So I'll be just waiting for it if there's any other side effects. But for sure, in my opinion, I'm all in. So what are your thoughts, Chris?
Well, as a parent, I have a 5-year-old who's now, I just made his appointment to get the vaccine today. But I'm not going to lie. I am hesitant. I'm nervous. He is vaccinated with all the other vaccines that are required. But we're nervous. As parents, we're nervous. We with the scientific information we have now, we're making the best decisions that we can with the information we have. We've thought about it. You know, it took me a while to get the vaccine. I'm finally fully vaccinated. Luckily, I didn't have any adverse effects, and I'm hoping that my son doesn't either. We're gonna do it over the weekend. We're gonna watch him closely and pray that this is in his best interest. You know, and hopefully he doesn't have any bad side effects, because that's what we're fearing. It's not that we're anti-vaxxers. We want to make sure that we're not putting something in his body that's going to harm him. But we also don't know how he will react to the coronavirus if he does get it. And my younger son, you guys remember, my younger son already contracted it from school. So, I mean, it's spreading around the kids. Kids can't help it. The daycares are a giant petri dish of germs. It is what it is. But I'm hopeful. I mean, I hope that this is a big step forward, and the children are spreading them so easily, just germs in general. So I think that this is a big step, but I'm still nervous.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I understand, Crystal, especially as a parent, you're always concerned about your kids and about this virus and what are the possible repercussions of this vaccine or COVID. So I understand there's a lot of confusing things going on right now, but I wish the best for you and your kids. One person who can appreciate the effectiveness of the vaccine is the White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, is battling COVID as we speak. Just days after pulling out of President Biden's overseas trip due to a family emergency, Psaki said Sunday she has tested positive for COVID. She said in a press release over the weekend that her emergency was in fact related to her family testing positive for COVID. Psaki continued saying, quote, "While I have not had close contact with the president or with senior members of the White House staff since Wednesday and tested negative for 4 days after that last contact, I am disclosing today's test out of an abundance of transparency," end quote. President Biden tested negative for COVID on Sunday, according to reports that came out on Monday. Psaki, who was fully vaccinated, added that she last saw the president last Tuesday, where they sat outside sitting 6 feet apart wearing masks. The press secretary is reportedly in quarantine experiencing mild symptoms. So honestly, I hope she feels better soon. And I understand as a press secretary, you're probably talking to all sorts of people from all walks of life. So even if she's fully vaccinated, there's still that risk, and she's probably at higher risk than a lot of people, a lot of our everyday people. So what are your thoughts?
Well, the fact that she's fully vaccinated, I think that's probably one of the reasons why she's experiencing mild symptoms, and good for her. And in the reports, it said that she would be returning to her post after 10 days and negative COVID tests. So let's hope.
Yeah, I just replicated your opinions. I think that's the most important thing. Hopefully that she gets better. For sure, it's just one more time that we get into our minds that this is a positive sign, that getting vaccinated is just mild symptoms and nothing further. And we should be thankful for that and thanking the science that we have and the results that we have right now. Well, but along with Jen Psaki, Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti and Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers have also reportedly tested positive for COVID. And as the virus continues to spread, public mandates continue to be enforced, with many city workers protesting the mandates. Over 2,000 New York City firefighters called out sick on Monday as the city's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for municipal employees took effect. Many of the firefighters out in protest of the vaccine mandate, some out because they received the shot over the weekend and are experiencing flu-like symptoms, according to the FDNY Firefighters Association President Andrew Ansbro. Ansbro also says this mandate is, quote, causing an exodus of firefighters, end quote, which will put a strain on fellow firefighters covering for their comrades. At a news conference, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio said approximately 9,000 city employees were on unpaid leave out of a 378,000 workforce for not complying with the vaccine mandate. The mayor went on to say that anyone falsely using sick time among the fire department or any other department will face serious consequences. De Blasio said, quote, "When a city employee fakes it and puts other people's lives in danger, that's a serious thing and there are going to be consequences for that," end quote. The mayor said that despite the thousands of municipal workers who call out, the city has not had any service disruptions among fire, police, and sanitation departments. The FDNY Fire Association President Jim McCarthy said, quote, "All are we asking for more time," end quote, adding that the extra time will not back firefighters into a corner. giving them extra time to decide if they want the vaccine or not. Well, and this is very controversial because I believe that we have both sides, the positive and negative. When it comes about the positive side, in my opinion, I could agree with the Firefighter Association thinking that, well, they just need more time and we can't pressure because we are dealing with their own freedom. And if they want or not get vaccinated. However, this is like a public service and they are really serving our community. And if we don't have that protection from our public services, then what are we waiting for? I mean, we already have private companies trying to get people vaccinated, their employees. What are we waiting for the public sector?
Well, Jorge, I completely agree because I feel like if you're a public officer, you're trying to help, with the general public, then you should take the vaccine because you want to serve the public and ensure that no one else gets sick.
Exactly.
And so honestly, I do kind of hope this weeds out people who aren't really here to serve the public for the greater good. Because personally, I think that should be the most important aspect of the job, whether you're a police officer or a firefighter. And so, yeah, essentially what I think that firefighters should be serving as many people as possible. And so if it weeds out people who don't want to take the time to take the vaccine, then it weeds out people. And I think that should pretty much be it. What are your thoughts, Crystal?
I'm going to have to slightly disagree with that, Amanda, although you do make a really great point that they are public workers. They're here to help the public. But I don't think that we should cancel them out because they're not ready to get the vaccine. I myself wasn't ready to get the vaccine, and I did it. I did it because I had pressure from family, from the school. Was I ready? I'm not going to say I was 100% ready. And I still don't feel really great about it. I mean, luckily nothing happened. We don't know what the long-term effects are. I'm not going to fault somebody for having reservations on a vaccine that, although has gone through clinical trials, we haven't had a decade of research on this, and we don't really know what the long-term effects are. I'm a science person. I'm trusting the scientists, but I think with the public workers, like our firefighters, we do need them. They are on the front lines, like you said, Amanda. They're out there. They're interfacing with the public. If they get sick and they're spreading the virus, they're coming into contact with a lot of sick people. They're able to spread the virus. So what can we do if somebody doesn't want to get the vaccine? I don't think that we should strap them down and put a needle in their arm. But what about getting regular tests? Having them, if you don't want to get the vaccine, okay, but you're going to have to get tested. Maybe that's an option. Getting tested weekly, something like that. It's really hard, and it's a very thin line. But I'm not ready to say to somebody that you have to get vaccinated and force that on them, because I wouldn't want that forced on me. And essentially it has been.
And I understand your point completely.
Yeah.
By the other way, what I also understand, and we were just talking about this, Amanda, is that they already have more than a good time to think about together or not. Maybe since March we were talking about it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a good time for them to decide about something. But I mean, for sure, that's pressure from government, and I don't really agree with it. But if it's the public policy and it is a public health issue, then that's, in my opinion, what needs to be done.
How much time do you guys think would be enough time in which it will give these firefighters or most people enough time to decide?
I think that's hard to say. I think it's really hard to say, which is why I think a timeline is really not realistic. I don't think a timeline is going to be realistic because there are going to be those out there that are going to continue to say it's still not enough time, right? No matter what. But I think one of the solutions we can do is what they're doing right now at concerts and at other big events, is that if you don't have a COVID card and you haven't been vaccinated, at least show a negative COVID test. And to me, I feel like, okay, if you don't want to get the vaccine, then you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit and go get a test.
Yeah, and I want to add something too. For example, we know that this is a city council matter, right? This is just about the city, but we also have Biden's administration taking public policies under the federal government.
Yes.
And we just know that the private companies are going to be pressured to get their employees vaccinated. So this is very ironic. Like, how do we have the private companies from all the country getting vaccinated, but a public service in one city, it's not happening? So for me, it's just very ironic. If we want to get some action in place, I would say that President Biden should also include that public policy into the public sector, not only the private sector.
Now, world leaders gathered at the COP26 Climate Crisis Summit in Glasgow, Scotland, to take action in accelerating the goals of the Paris Agreement and the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. On day one of the Conference of Parties 26th gathering, President Biden apologized for the Trump administration pulling out of the Paris Agreement, saying the pullout, quote, put us behind the 8 ball a little bit, end quote. The president continued saying, quote, we will seize the enormous opportunity before us, or we will condemn future generations to suffering, end quote. In a video message, Queen Elizabeth made an appearance by video urging world leaders to create a more stable future for the planet. The Queen said, quote, for our children and our children's children, rise above the politics of the movement, end quote. Greta Thunberg was not impressed by the event and was directly outside of the conference protesting the leaders for their lack of action. Thunberg rallied with protesters chanting behind her, saying in reference to the leaders inside of the conference, quote, change is not going to come from inside there. This is not leadership. No more blah, 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 end quote. President Biden called out China and Russia for their respective leaders' absence, even though China is one of the world's largest emitters of carbon dioxide, followed by the U.S. and Russia being the 5th largest after Europe and India. The climate conference will run until November 14th. Max Baumhefner, senior attorney for the Climate and Clean Energy Program at the Natural Resources Defense Council, joins us here today. Hi, Max. Welcome to the report. We're so grateful to have you here. I know it was short notice, so thank you for bearing with us. We really do appreciate it. Can you give us a little bit of background on your organization and what the purpose is?
The purpose of the Natural Resources Defense Council is to save the planet. We've been around for 40 years and have millions of members and activists across the country and work on every major environmental and public health issue that matters.
Max, it's a pleasure once again that you're here with us at the report. Right now, as we're speaking, we have the Climate Change Summit going on. Now, there's been protesters outside, manifestations, trying and asking for real change. I have 2 questions for you. The first one, what would the major threat on climate change will be in this moment? But also, do you think this is just only big talk, or are we going to see some actions in the near future?
Yeah, well, I think that the science makes it pretty clear that burning stuff is the biggest cause of global warming pollution. And historically, that's been in the power sector. But increasingly, and for the last several years, in the United States and in other countries, the biggest source of emissions is from the cars, trucks, and buses that we drive and depend upon for our mobility needs. So that's what I work on. Like Willie said, and I guess I go where the biggest carbon bank is, and that's what we focus on.
So Max, as we know, Gavin Newsom, so he's trying to outlaw gas-powered machines by 2023. So do you think this is practical, and would it even make any change in the climate crisis?
Yeah, I would know that it's not a ban on internal combustion vehicles. It's increasing sales requirements for zero-emission vehicles, which we already have on the books and that are working, and we're just ramping them up to get to that future where we rely entirely upon zero-emission vehicles. And it is working. California already has almost 1 million electric vehicles on the road, and we're demonstrating that this can be done. And we've been joined by about 15 other states who, along with California, account for the bulk of the U.S. automotive market. And so we have a lot of buying power collectively, and we pave the way for federal policy, which in turn helps pave the way for international policy that is necessary to address the climate crisis.
Well, Max, with China being number 1 as far as carbon dioxide emissions, and them not showing up to the summit, I mean, how detrimental is it to get other nations like China on board with the policies that we're trying to put in place here in California even?
Yeah, well, there's a reason we call this a global commons problem. We need a global solution, but we can do that starting at the subnational level, like in progressive states like California that have been leading the way for a long time. And there are a lot of other subnational organizations that collectively have pledged to reduce their emissions that collectively account for a much greater share of the Earth's population than does China alone. But clearly, we can't do it without China, which is partially why my organization has had an office in Beijing for 20-something years and is working in India as well. We need a global solution, but we need to demonstrate to the world that that solution does not involve trading their well-being and their economic viability for a cleaner climate, which it most certainly does not.
And for those who are watching and who are climate skeptics, for lack of a better word, and those who don't believe that climate change is real, what do you have to say to them?
The planet is burning. This is not a theoretical proposition. Anybody who's taken shelter in California recently as a result of wildfires that have been exacerbated by climate change knows that this is not a theory. This is a reality that we're living with, and that I'm sorry to say my 2 young boys will be living with, and we'll see some of the adverse impacts of it for the duration of their life.
And if anyone is interested in getting involved in helping out with your organization, what are some things that they might be able to do, even as far as donations?
Well, we always appreciate donations, and we have a lot of members who make small donations that help with our budget, but also help because then I can stand up in a legislature or in a court or before a regulatory procedure and say, we're here to represent real people. So we appreciate that, and nrdc.org is the place to go. And our membership team would be happy to take you from there.
Well, we really do appreciate your time today, and we really appreciate what you guys are doing. It's amazing, and our hats off to you, because the climate situation is it is extremely important, and we do appreciate every step you're taking to make it a better world for your kids, my kids, and all of our children.
Well, thank you for your time.
So it was interesting to hear Max talk about the global issue, because it is a global issue, and so many people don't realize that. You know, Gavin Newsom is phasing out these gas-powered vehicles, the sale of the gas-powered vehicles, but we're just one state, right? So even if our nation follows suit, we still need the world.
I think we need all the help we can get, because it turns out that a lot of countries aren't even completely following their Paris climate goals. So please keep in mind that's predicted that China and India will have higher emissions in 2030. The U.S.'s pledge is too low, so chances are we aren't even going to meet our goals. And although Russia is the 5th largest emitter of pollution and greenhouse gases in the world, it hasn't made any pledge. So honestly, from California to even the smallest country, we need to help however we can for this crisis, because in the end, it's going to infect every single person on this earth.
Totally. Now, talking about Greta Thunberg and what she's doing right now, protesting outside of this climate change summit, I like the way that she's trying to pursue her goals, because that's her job. As a social activist, she needs to be pressuring the government, and we need actions. Now, I really agree with President Biden's comments saying that, yes, it's more than good that now we're once again under the Agreement of Paris. However, we really need action, and we really need more than just, like she said, just discussions and opinions. We need a specific action plan. And also, this is really good for us as citizens, that we need to understand that this impact causing international controversy is also affecting our very own state, California. Yeah. So I think it just brings more attention to the political spectrum here in our state, and hopefully that we can be part of a solution. So once again, this is a reminder of how important discussions like this need to be talked, and hopefully we're part of a solution.
Coming up, we have a special guest joining us, but first, a commercial break. All right, Titans, today we have a very special person in studio, one of our own students here at Cal State Fullerton. As a business marketing student and social media coordinator for Titan Communications, Ximena Yanez is well-developed in all aspects of social media, public relations, and marketing. But if you know Ximena, you know her passion for makeup and keen sense of fashion set her apart from the rest. Facing many hardships that would deter most from persevering, Ximena stayed the course and most recently earned a spot as speaker at a TEDxCSUF event where she was selected to read a special poem she wrote herself. We are so honored to have her here with us today. Ximena, welcome to the report. It's so great to have you here.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I really appreciate being here.
Ximena, once again, it's a pleasure, and we know that you already have a well-developed base in order for to succeed in the career that you have. But recently, you were just a participant of TEDx here at CSUF. So can you tell us a little bit about the process? How was that? How do you feel?
Well, it was an amazing accomplishment. I mean, that's what everybody else is telling me. I mean, I try to stay as humble as I can when it comes to this. But it was a lot of hard work. I spent around 6 months kind of secretly working on this. I didn't tell any family or friends besides like my closest, and I did spend like 6 months working on this. But behind the scenes, like I had already had the poem. I actually written this in 11th grade of my high school. And I adapted my poem to be more kind of like mature and grown up like I had grown in the last 2 years. So yeah, I mean, it's like a step-by-step process, but yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what was the inspiration for this poem?
My biggest inspiration, I mean, like I said before, I wrote the poem in 11th grade. My inspiration was just how I felt in the moment. And then as I grew up like 2 years later, I realized that, I wasn't the only one feeling it this way. And the poem stemmed off the idea that I wanted to share with people about this. And the idea is to kind of hone in on the fact that you are enough. It's all about mental health. It's all about, confidence and just realizing that you're the one in control.
You mentioned being enough, and as a poet myself, a lot of my inspiration comes from trauma, it comes from pain, and is it safe to say that a lot of this was a culmination of experiences that you have had negatively in your life?
I'd say it's a mix of both negatives and positives. I mean, 100% poetry comes from the heart and it comes from experiences. And the last 3 years have been tough. And it was the biggest inspiration on why I wanted to do the TEDx talk. It was realizing that I had gone through so much, but that I could go on stage and still persevere and be able to stand up there and realize I had gone through a lot, but I'm okay and I'm enough. So.
Talk about the TEDx event itself. What was that? What was it like and leading up to it? And was it everything you imagined it would be? Was it disappointing at all?
I am very impressed with the team that was the TEDx CSUF. I mean, it was so funny because initially I thought it was an event for students. Again, we did all of this independently. For 6 months to ourselves, we had to go through 3 auditions, and we had 3 once a month appointments with our speaking advisors. And they would talk with us about like our writings, our presentation skills, and everything like that. We never saw them face to face. Again, it was Zoom. It was COVID. We had to do everything by ourselves. We did the memorization by ourselves. We never got on stage or tested the mics until day of.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of pressure, but I mean, it was impressive because, again, like I said, I thought it was just a student event. It wasn't until I got there that there were people from across the country. We had people from Florida, we had people from Ohio, Chicago, and we had people in California too. We had a wonderful professor also from CSUF also perform. We had an alumni. We had a lot of people. And surprise, surprise, I was the only student. And
wow.
I did not know that. And that was surprising. The event itself was quite amazing. I give a lot of credit to the team that organized all of this. Later, I learned that, that CSUF, the TEDxCSUF Fullerton was, I think, the most prominent the West Coast. So it was really amazing to hear that, and they lived up to it. They did a good job. I mean, it is a student organized event.
That's really good. I mean, congratulations once again, because that's very impressive, and that's quite a challenge for any person, like any youth, any person who is like trying to perceive and to get their dreams done. You know, this is a really good opportunity that you received and you took advantage. I'm just curious, for those, our audience, that they really want to watch your poem, is there a specific platform that is going to be ready to be watched?
Yeah, so the TEDx YouTube account, the professional TEDx YouTube account, it will be posting my my poem edited and cut and everything officially in like a few weeks. But you could also find it like on my Instagram. I'll link it in my bio for people who are anxious. Everybody's really anxious to see it. But yeah, so they should be cutting it and everything. They had a wonderful set. They had us all mic'd up. They had us all like with cameras professionally done and everything like that. So it should be posted soon.
Well, Ximena, I think it's amazing how you put so much passion into your work, and you had the opportunity to speak to so many people from across the country, despite the fact you didn't know this was going to happen the way that it did. So I think it's amazing how you're a sophomore, essentially living the freshman experience since you were over Zoom last year. So I'd like to ask you, do you have any specific plans in the future now that you've done this talk, this presentation?
I think, well, the talk was more of a, like others think it's a stepping stone, but for me it was more like an accomplishment that I had already planned on doing. Like, low-key, I was like, this is a bucket list thing, and I never thought I would accomplish it so soon, but, you know, check off the bucket list. And I do have a lot of plans for the future. I mean, I do intend to focus on the makeup and fashion industry and being part of marketing and all that kind of stuff. And I have a few interviews coming up, and I'm really excited. And it's also really good to have like the TEDx experience behind me for experience, but also for like the excitement of being able to say that I was able to accomplish this. So
Definitely, it's definitely resume content. But on a deeper level, after you finished reading your poem, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
That I couldn't believe I did it. I had two thoughts, actually. It was like, the initial thought was I couldn't believe that I had accomplished this goal. And then the second one was, I want to thank everybody, because I wanted to initially thank my English teachers who actually assigned this assignment. And I'm mentioning this right now because I one day want to go up to her and be like, this is what you did. I want to hand her the videos and be like, this is the assignment that you provided, and this is your student that you influenced and you inspired. So I was just like, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank all my supporters and the people that knew that I was doing the TED Talk in private. They were like my biggest helpers. They spent like like the first 15 minutes before I had like my appointments and stuff. They like spent like half an hour with me, just me going over my poem and everything like that. And it was just like, I wanted to thank everybody. And that was like my second thought, you know.
That's so amazing. I am so impressed. I'm in awe, and we're so proud of you. As your fellow Cal State Fullerton students, we just want to tell you how proud of you we are, truly. It's an accomplishment. It's an accomplishment on a level that is deeper than most can understand. And for you to accomplish this at your age, it really shows where you're headed. So congratulations again.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And with that, that's all the time we have today on The Report. Another big thank you to Ximena Yanez. We're so proud of her, and we want to congratulate her. You can view her poem at the TEDx YouTube channel in a couple of weeks. As always, have a safe week, everybody, and stay tuned for more news, views, and info. I'm Chris Adler.
I'm Amanda Mendoza.
And I'm Jorge Flores. As always, TEDxCSUF.